A galaxy on the brink. The universe was dying. Not in some slow natural decay, but in a violent, unforgiving collapse. Entire civilizations had been wiped from existence in mere cycles. The invaders, known only as the Krail Dominion, didn't negotiate. They didn't take prisoners. They consumed. Not just resources, not just planets, entire biospheres. They devoured them, stripping worlds to their core and leaving only barren husks behind. And now, the next species in line for annihilation had no choice left. They had to beg for help. Even from the species they had once ridiculed. Even from humans. The last transmission. On the bridge of the Gorvathian command ship, High Chancellor Vorthax trembled. His people had never lost a war before. For centuries, the Gorvath Imperium had stood tall, lords of the mid-rim territories, conquerors of 1,000 worlds. But now they had nothing left. Vorthax gripped the armrests of his throne, his claws digging into the polished obsidian. His fleet was in ruins, their grand armadas reduced to debris fields scattered across the stars. The Krail had torn through them like a cosmic plague, devouring their colonies, their strongholds, their homeworld. Gorvath Prime was gone. Nothing but a hollowed-out corpse of a planet remained where their mighty empire once stood. And now, in their darkest hour, they were doing something unthinkable. They were calling humans for aid. The species they had once dismissed as primitive savages. The species that had never joined the Galactic Council. The species that had always been watching. A human response. The message was sent. A desperate plea for salvation. Vorthax and his remaining commanders stood in silence as the transmission carried across the void, hoping, praying for an answer. For hours there was nothing. Then, a single reply. It was not a fleet. It was not an ambassador. It was a message. Just 3 words spoken in perfect galactic standard. Hold your ground. Vorthax stared at the holographic display in disbelief. That was it? No grand negotiation? No posturing? No demands? Just an order. Hold your ground. It was impossible. They couldn't hold. They had no fleet left. The Krail would arrive within cycles, and when they did, the Gorvath would be gone. And yet, something in those 3 words felt different. As if the humans knew something he didn't. The storm on the horizon. The Krail arrived precisely on schedule. A horde of living warships, each one twice the size of a dreadnought, moving with an unnatural hunger. They did not broadcast warnings. They did not gloat. They simply advanced. Vorthax shut his eyes as the first beams of light erupted from the Krail vessels, energy lances tearing through the void, carving into his already crippled defenses. It was over. The humans had lied. There was nothing coming. And then, the universe changed. Arrival. The void itself rippled. Not in a normal hyperspace jump. Not in a standard subspace breach. Something else was happening. Vorthax felt it. A gravitational anomaly, an invisible pressure pressing down on the entire system. And then, they arrived. At first it seemed like a single vessel. A monolith of black metal, its surface lined with crimson lights, emerging from the void like a reaper descending upon the battlefield. Then another appeared. And another. And another. In a matter of seconds, the entire system was drenched in the shadow of an unstoppable fleet. The human expeditionary armada. For the first time in history, humanity had arrived in force. And they weren't here to negotiate. They were here to end a war. The first shot. The Krail hesitated. For the first time ever. Their hunger-driven assault slowed as if some primal instinct, some forgotten fear, had ignited in their monstrous minds. They knew battle. They knew slaughter. But they had never faced ships like these. Ships without call signs. Ships without designation numbers. Ships that bore only one symbol on their hulls. A burning blue sphere with a single, defiant banner. Earth's insignia. And then, in a display of power unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed, the first human dreadnought fired. It was not a weapon in the conventional sense. It was a statement. A single shot, one singular devastating beam, that cleaved through the Krail like a divine judgment. An entire war world, a planet-sized Krail supercarrier, was split in half. A moment of silence. Then the pieces detonated, igniting the void in a firestorm of destruction. Vorthax staggered back. The Krail had just lost more forces in one shot than in their entire 500-year conquest. And humanity? Hadn't even begun yet. The death sentence. The Krail reacted in blind panic. They turned, seeking to retreat, to scatter, to flee into the depths of space. But the humans did not allow it. The moment the first Krail ship attempted to escape, a human destroyer intercepted it. 1 second the Krail ship was there, the next it was gone. No explosion. No wreckage. Just erased from existence. A single message was broadcasted across the system, this time from the lead human dreadnought itself. A deep, cold voice spoke in galactic standard. Not a threat. Not a request. A sentence. You have feasted long enough. Now, we feast on you. And then, the true battle began. The end of the Krail begins. The human fleet descended like a storm, cutting through the Krail with merciless precision. There were no warnings. No demands. Only war. Vorthax watched, frozen, as the unstoppable human onslaught tore through their ancient enemy like an executioner's blade. It was brutal. It was relentless. And it was only the beginning. Because for the first time in galactic history, humanity was here. And they weren't leaving. The battlefield of gods. The void burned. Where once the Krail had ravaged entire sectors, now they burned in their own funeral pyres. Human dreadnoughts moved through the battlefield like ancient titans, their massive hulls blotting out the stars. They didn't fight like the other species of the galaxy. They didn't use swarm tactics or intricate formations. They advanced. A relentless, unstoppable march into the heart of the Krail's might. Vorthax stood frozen on the bridge of his command ship, eyes locked on the battle unfolding before him. This wasn't war. It was annihilation. The unseen force. Vorthax had studied warfare all his life. He had seen countless armadas clash. He had led fleets to victory over countless civilizations. But he had never seen anything like this. The humans weren't just winning. They were toying with their prey. A Krail battlecruiser broke formation, attempting to flee. A human corvette, a ship barely a fraction of its size, appeared beside it in an instant. Not with hyperspace jumps. Not with standard warp drives. Something else. Something faster. The human corvette cut through the Krail ship in a single maneuver, slicing it apart with weapons that left no trace of debris, just a hollowed-out husk of metal and biomass. Vorthax's claws clenched against his command chair. Oh, how did the humans move like that? How did they fire weapons that bypassed all known defenses? They hadn't just come to fight. They had come to send a message. The silent executioners. The Krail were still trying to fight back. But their weapons, the same ones that had torn through Gorvathian fleets like they were nothing, didn't work against human ships. Energy beams, kinetic rounds, biochemical warheads, all intercepted. Every single shot. Intercepted. Human vessels didn't dodge. They didn't evade. They absorbed. Their shields, if they even had shields, simply nullified attacks like they never existed. A Gorvathian officer gasped beside Vorthax. It's like the humans are untouchable. Vorthax said nothing. Because he was realizing something far, far worse. The humans were holding back. They were testing the Krail. Like an apex predator playing with its food. And that meant the real attack hadn't started yet. The moment the galaxy changed, the Krail, in a desperate move, rallied the remainder of their forces. A final stand. They launched everything. Their remaining war worlds, their dreadnoughts, their planetary annihilators. They concentrated all their power into one last assault. And for a moment Vorthax thought, perhaps, just perhaps, humanity had underestimated them. Then he saw the human fleet move in unison. It was a coordinated strike unlike anything in history. There was no hesitation. No wasted movement. No mercy. A single human battle carrier unleashed a weapon so powerful, so unfathomably precise, that an entire Krail warmoon simply ceased to exist. Not an explosion. Not a collapse. It was as if it had been erased from reality. Vorthax whispered, "Impossible?" And then he saw the real horror. The human fleet was still accelerating. They weren't just destroying the Krail. They were hunting them. And they were enjoying it. A message to the galaxy. Vorthax's calm officer turned to him, shaking. "Chancellor, the humans, they're transmitting something. A single message. Broadcasted not just to the Krail. Not just to the Gorvath. But to the entire galaxy. A deep, commanding voice. Cold. Unyielding. Absolute. Your war ends now." The feed cut. And the humans advanced once more. No more war. Only judgment. The Krail didn't retreat anymore. They couldn't. There was nowhere left to run. Humanity had surrounded them. In the darkness of space, the Galactic Council had always feared that one day humanity might intervene in the affairs of the universe. But now they knew. Humanity hadn't intervened. They had taken control. And the war was already over. The fall of a titan. The Krail did not beg for mercy. Their species had waged war for millennia, carving their dominion across entire galaxies. They had never lost a war. Never faced a foe they could not break, enslave, or consume. But now, as their fleets burned, as their war moons crumbled, as their warriors screamed into the abyss, they were realizing a terrible truth. They had never fought something like humanity, and they never would again. Aboard the Krail Command Dreadnought, Supreme Warlord Zyvar watched the disaster unfold. His greatest generals had perished in minutes. His strongest weapons had shattered like brittle glass. Even his reinforcements, millions of Krail warriors, had never even reached the battlefield. Because the moment they exited hyperspace, the humans had erased them. Not with explosions. Not with standard weaponry. Something else. Something Zyvar could not comprehend. And that terrified him more than anything. An unstoppable advance. Vorthax, aboard his own battlecruiser, watched in frozen horror. The Krail's final stronghold, the Titan Citadel, was falling. A fortress world that had stood for 10,000 years. A world built to withstand extinction itself. The humans burned through it in less than an hour. 1 hour. That was all it took for them to do what no empire had ever accomplished. He turned to his officers. Not a single one spoke. They were witnessing history. And they knew without a doubt. The balance of the galaxy had changed forever. A last desperate plea. The transmission shocked the entire council. Warlord Zyvar himself, the butcher of 1,000 worlds, was begging. Not for victory. Not for escape. For surrender. We yield. His voice trembled. We will submit to human law. We will never wage war again. Just let us live. The council chambers fell into a stunned silence. A species as ruthless as the Krail, pleading. It was unthinkable. The comms fell silent. And then the humans responded. One word. No. The judgment of humanity. In one final moment, the Titan Citadel ceased to exist. Not destroyed. Not conquered. Erased. It was as if it had never been there to begin with. Millions of Krail warriors, warlords, their entire ruling caste, gone. Humanity had passed judgment. And the sentence was absolute. The silence after the storm. The Galactic Council watched in mute horror. The war was over. Not because the humans had won. Because they had decided it was over. And that realization sent a chill through every empire, every species, every ruler across the galaxy. For the first time in history, the most feared species in existence was not the Krail. It was humanity. A new era begins. Vorthax turned away from the screen, his claws trembling. The Krail were no more. But now a greater question loomed. If humanity could do this to the Krail, what would they do to anyone who defied them? The galaxy had changed. Forever. Echoes of the fallen. The ruins of the Titan Citadel floated in the void, nothing but shattered rock and silent wreckage. The Krail were gone. Not defeated. Not enslaved. Not broken. Erased. It was a silence that the galaxy had never known before. Vorthax sat aboard his flagship, staring at the emptiness where the greatest empire in history once stood. His breath was shallow. His mind refused to accept the truth. The Krail had ruled for thousands of years. And in just a single battle, humanity had erased them from existence. The Council's realization. In the depths of the Galactic Council chambers, the remaining empires argued in frantic whispers. What had just happened was impossible. Humanity's war machines had been unstoppable. Their weapons had rewritten the very laws of war. Their ships had not just destroyed but erased entire fleets. No one had ever fought like this before. Because no one had ever thought like this before. They could have taken the Krail as slaves, one counselor muttered. They could have left them broken and obedient. Another, eyes hollow with fear, shook their head. No, a pause. They didn't want slaves. The room fell into silence. They wanted a warning. A message to the stars. A single transmission pulsed through every network in the galaxy. It carried no threats. No demands. No diplomacy. Just 3 words. Let this stand. And the meaning was clear. The Krail had been a warning. This was what happened to those who pushed humanity too far. No second chances. No negotiations. Only extinction. The last survivor speaks. Vorthax felt his hands shaking as he accepted the transmission request from the humans. A single officer appeared on screen. Calm, cold, unshaken. You saw what we did, the human said. You understand what it means. Vorthax swallowed hard. The war was over. But the terror was just beginning. What happens now? He asked. The human's expression did not change. That depends, they said. Will the galaxy learn? Vorthax's breath hitched, and for the first time in his life he knew what true submission felt like. The future belongs to humanity. The stars burned quietly. The balance of power was forever changed. Once, the Krail had been unstoppable. Now, humanity had taken their place. And the galaxy knew one thing for certain. There would never be another war against the humans, because there would never be anyone left to fight them. Do you think the galaxy will ever challenge humanity again? Or is this just the beginning? Subscribe now and witness what happens next.